What if I said to you, 1 million dead? What pops into your head? Does that seem too much? Too unrealistic? Too crazy? 1 million dead. When's the last time you thought about it? Do you even know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Trump and COVID. Remember those days? We've been conditioned to forget, to erase it from our memory, like it never happened. Did it? It's like there was a gigantic hole that got covered over, not filled in. The hole is still there. It's a bottomless mass pit of pain and suffering and death. It can't ever be filled in. So we cover it up, but it's like a trapdoor we all need to step on and fall through to remember. We talk about the Holocaust. We don't even have to say Nazis or Jews. Calling it the Holocaust says it all. There's the Armenian genocide. There's the genocide of our indigenous peoples. There's the Gaza genocide going on right now. I wonder how the Black Death was covered in the media at the time. But we know there is an entire industry of Holocaust deniers and Gaza deniers, and yes, COVID deniers. Trump committed a crime against humanity. He should be brought to justice for that crime alone. Forget about Stormy Daniels and Jean Carroll and his collaboration of the Russians sabotaged the legal election of 2016, or the traitorous stealing of the classified files, or encouraging the failed white supremacist insurrection. Where are the courageous members of Congress and the Senate and the courts? Where are the lawyers and organizations who stand for justice? How could they take an oath to uphold justice, to uphold the Constitution, to enforce the laws, and let him get away with it? It's a painful reminder of how ultimately unimportant oaths and the Constitution and laws really are. History, if we survive, and that's a big one, will remember Trump as the treasonous, murderous criminal he is, but it will also remember all those who failed to bring him to justice as the cowards they were and still are. There is some debate as to whether 1 million people actually died of COVID on his watch, or was it more like 400,000 or 500,000? Like, does that make it better? It's like Holocaust revisionists always get bogged down in the numbers game too. Was it 6 million or 5 million? That's why the new strategy is not to report numbers at all. We'll never know how many Native Americans were wiped out in the early days of our history. We barely know how many innocents we killed in Vietnam. We never get an accurate number on the Gaza genocide. This can only happen if the media is complicit in the genocide. The media must be accomplices. If they were truly journalists, it would be the headline every day instead of buried and suppressed. Remember drinking bleach? Injecting disinfectants? Remember the flooding of the inside of our bodies with ultraviolet light? How about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin? And if we have another pandemic, remember, Trump is president again. And worse, Robert Kennedy is in charge of public health, but really, in charge of public death. How do you think that's going to go? 1 million might wind up being a small number. Misinformation, disinformation on purpose. And people believe Trump, the postmodern president, despite the scientists trying to warn us. He turned people against science, and that was another way to murder people. How many? Who knows? And look, science isn't infallible. It's incredibly flawed. And if you listen or read philosophers like Kuhn or Popper, they will tell you how science gets caught in a rigid, stubborn paradigm that's very hard to break out of and is often wrong. But at its best, when it works, its pursuit of truth and its methods to reach the truth when it remains open-minded and not unduly influenced or corrupted or sullied or distorted by big pharma or oppressive governments or pseudoscience, and the crucial breakthroughs that have arisen and continue to arise out of that pursuit represent perhaps the height amongst the precious few crowning achievements of mankind. Science's imperfections should not be an invitation to quackery and charlatanism and ignorance. It is better to be right most of the time and continue to try to get it right than be guaranteed wrong all of the time and know it's wrong and exploit you and rip you off in the process. Break up Big Pharma. Weed out the wrong and exploitive in science and its institutions, but shut down the charlatans trying to sell you miracle cures that don't work. On 9/11, 3,000 died. And although that was a relatively small number compared to the Holocaust or COVID or the Vietnam War or Gaza, the strategy was the same. Dehumanize the victims. They are all now simply faceless, nameless victims, except of course to their families. And people, firemen, first responders, civilians continue to die from the fallout of 9/11. In the same way, Trump's lies and tactics facilitated many deaths, hundreds of thousands, after he left office. We officially hit 1 million COVID deaths a month after he left office, officially. And we know that's a lie because it's far more. We all know that. We don't like to admit it. We don't like to face it. We'd rather forget it and move on like all the mass death this country is responsible for. And by the way, that doesn't include the incalculable death of people losing their health insurance or the denial and ignorance and rejection of climate change. All things Trump gleefully supports. This is murder on an unprecedented scale. The words mass death don't describe this devastation. The true number of any of these tragedies, including World War II, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki, will never be known. So much has been covered up and distorted and suppressed and lied and propagandized about. And not everybody dies at once. Some take years to die from the effects of these traumatic tragedies. And there are so many invested in diverting us from the truth and leading us far, far away from the truth. And no one has led us further from the truth with a trail of lies than Donald Trump. The world we live in now is the world Trump wanted, and COVID helped him achieve it. COVID broke America, and Trump exploited that moment of weakness to get him where he is today. When we think about mass death, it's often considered bad taste to think in terms of who benefited. But that's how who benefited get away with it. Who benefited from the Black Death? Read The World the Plague Made, The Black Death and the Rise of Europe by James Belich. There wouldn't be a Europe without Black Death. Who benefited from the Holocaust? Read The Holocaust Industry by Norman Finkelstein and see the surprisingly wide range of people, institutions, and government who exploited the Holocaust for profit. Who benefits from the genocide in Gaza? Read The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi or The Punishment of Gaza by Gideon Levy. And who benefited from COVID? Read Pandemic Incorporated, Chasing the Capitalists and Thieves Who Got Rich While We Got Sick by J. David McSwain. Throughout history, the elite, the already wealthy with their ill-begotten riches, have killed us. They killed our ancestors and our immediate families, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, children, and parents. And for what? Not a good cause, a bad cause, a terrible cause, the worst cause, their profit. Think of how disgusting, repulsive, repugnant, offensive that concept is. Those in charge do not care about you. First they profit from the death, and then when they're ready, they profit from the solution only to start the cycle again. Once it was cancer, yesterday COVID, today ecological disaster, tomorrow bird flu, the day after, take your pick. There are so many diseases, so many ways to kill us, and they keep adding to the numbers. Microplastics, their fault. Dirty water, dirty air, dirty land, poison everywhere. They did it, and they want to blame you. Throw your can in a special bin while they pollute and poison the earth and space. Space is already fucked up thanks to Lockheed and Boeing and Raytheon and Musk and many, many others. We are overwhelmed by mass death. We need to control this technology, not the greedy profit takers who don't care about the consequences. We need the information that they hide from us so we can make informed decisions. You don't need to give up anything. You need to control it. Take the power away from those in charge and join together to use the technology to make better decisions that benefit mankind. That's not crazy. You've been led to believe it's crazy, but it's not. That's their power, to propagandize you into surrender, to accept your fates, to accept your death. When a thief steals something, the idea is not to let them escape, but that is what the elite are doing. They have stolen our wealth, our dreams, our futures, our lives, and now they are trying to escape. We must form the human posse and round these criminals up and put them on trial and make them answer for their crimes against humanity and take back what they have stolen from us. And public enemy number one is Trump. It's enough. It's enough greed and mass death. Trump killed America, and now he's feasting on the corpse.